Paolo, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi.
I'm very excited and very happy to have you to the podcast. And it's a bit funny because you are actually the first podcast guest that I had as a newsletter subscriber, and we started to discuss from there, and it ended up in a podcast. So I'm very happy about this. We will talk about many things today, MCP maybe being the main topic of the discussion, and especially MCP in JavaScript. But prior to that, tell us a bit about yourself. How did you started with programming, and
Yeah. So
your
like,
origin story?
yeah, okay. So like, I really started like more than half of my year ago. Like, I started programming when I was 17. Now I am 36. And I actually started, so I used to play RPG games online, play by chat. So like, I used to play like, there's this chat, and it's basically D&D in a chat. And I started like learning a bit of HTML and CSS for like building my guild site and stuff like that. And then a friend of mine said like, why don't we build an RPG online played by chat? And I naively thought that CSS and HTML was all I needed for that. And so I said, yes, let's do it. And I started looking into how to do it, and I downloaded a like pre-made version of this in PHP 4.
Oh,
So
okay.
and like, but I didn't know how to run it. Like, and actually, I was like, I was curious, like, how the heck writing a message here like reach out other people in the rest of the world. And if you open a PHP file, like if you rename a PHP file as .html, it will actually show kind of the UI with some sprinkled in PHP. And so I thought it was all I needed. And then I started reading into it, and I realized that like it was at all not all I needed. But instead of just saying, okay, I will not do it, I actually started learning PHP. And so that was my introduction to the world of development. And then a funny thing is that I mean, obviously, like then I went to university, and I remember that at that time I actually hated web development in the sense that my idea was at that time nobody had internet on their phone, and so like I wanted people to be able to access my programs even without internet. So like when I went to university, I was very thrilled to learning Java because like, then I could be desktop, like
Exactly.
real
Yeah.
application.
What was it? A standard standard edition, Java standard edition was the one that let you build. Yeah.
And and so like and after that at university I actually got really into photography. And so like I after university I decided, okay, I'm gonna try to do like to be a photographer. And so basically I skipped, and this is something that I always tell about myself, like I basically skipped the jQuery era. So like I left web development right before, like right when jQuery was starting to gain popularity.
Wow.
And I came back like 5 years later when jQuery was done. I mean, not really
Yeah,
done.
and React and Angular started
It's
to
not going anywhere, but like React was starting to gain popularity. And so like
incredible.
I basically skipped the jQuery era, but then like I came back after that, and I started like doing web development. And at that point, everybody at the internet. And so like I actually changed my mind, and now like I'm full on web development because that's where what you can use whenever you are. Like you can just do this. And from that on, I started like working a bit with React, but then I still remember that day. Like I was in line to get my COVID shot, so it was 2020.
Yep.
And I saw Richard still talk about like rethinking reactivity about Svelte, and like it really sold me completely on Svelte. So I started using Svelte for my side projects and stuff like that. And then after that, I won the hackathon, like the Svelte hackathon, with Svelte Lab, which is an online Apple. It's similar to StackBlitz. Basically, it's actually using the web container stack from StackBlitz under the hood. And from that moment on, like I'm basically like super sold on Svelte. I became a Svelte ambassador, and now I'm even a Svelte maintainer. So like
Two side notes on your story so far. First of all, it's very funny that you are also, as I am, and many others in the category that started programming because of games.
Yeah.
Wanting to build games, wanting to. I remember initially I started on a broken, what was it, a Commodore or something like that, the one that actually didn't had a monitor. You had to plug it in and write in BASIC. And but after that, I remember that at one point I discovered HTML and I was blown away by the fact that I can take this picture and move it on the screen actually with a bit of JavaScript, so that can be my game. And I was, wow, this is game, so the next level. And one other, so first of all, let's tell current parents and future parents that games are not bad.
Yeah.
Many, many of us have a job because of games. Exactly. Of course, not to overdo it, but and second, on the Svelte idea, I assume that do you know Swix, Shan Wang, because he's quite. I mean, he's actually coined the term of AI engineering, but. He was also very involved with Svelte at one point with the Svelte community, and I think Svelte Society was the
Yes.
very such a small world, such a
Yeah.
small world. And coming to current days, tell us a bit, what do you do today on your day-to-day job and also your
Yes.
many
So
side
I
projects?
work for a consultancy. It's called Main Matter, and like I've been hired because like as a Svelte expert. So like I'm basically like this consultancy focus on like we are pretty like forward looking as a consultancy because like we basically specialize in Svelte and Rust. So like it's all the new fast technology, and we basically like we do team augmentation, which basically means that like we are not only executor of your project, like we join your team and we work with you so that like we teach you best practice, we teach you like the technology itself, which is something that I absolutely love about my job. Like the fact that I can teach Svelte during my day-to-day job is something that it's absolutely wonderful.
And you can teach it quite at a professional level, so
Yeah,
not very introduction all the time, like
yeah, like we literally teach you best practice and how to do stuff like in the real world.
nice
And
job, nice job. So Sims has a great job.
yeah, it's very cool.
And how often, as a personal curiosity, do you change projects? I mean, when you join a team, let's say, do you stay with them for one day, one week, 1 month? How
we,
does?
we generally tend to like well we first have like an initial assessment like we join your team, we see your code base, like we give you suggestions of what you could change and what you can like what we would improve and stuff like that, and then from that we do some planning to do like okay maybe we could work together to make this thing, and then maybe we help you hire so that you can actually maintain it yourself. Like our goal is always, and this is also something that is pretty interesting in my opinion, the fact that like some agency like they really stuck to you and they don't want to leave you because obviously like you are a source of money.
Yeah.
Like we are kind of the opposite. Like since the beginning like we plan how to leave, like so we want to leave your company in a better state basically. Like so we join your
Oh.
team and then we try to form your company so that we can leave and you can continue working on the project.
Somehow code yourself out of the job, but
Yeah,
in your case, teach yourself out of the job.
exactly.
Well, very interesting. One of the most interesting jobs I recently heard. So not your default. And I assume that everything is remote now. You.
Yeah. We are scattered all over Europe.
Mhm.
Like I work from Italy. We have actually quite a few people from Italy, but not from the same city.
I see.
The company is based in Germany,
I see.
so like we have a lot of people from Germany, but like we are also scattered all over Europe.
I see. Nice. And I know that beside your day-to-day job, you are also handling a couple of open source projects. You are an active contributor to Svelte, which is a big
Yeah.
thing. And you also have your TMCP
Yes.
project that actually led was the starting point of our discussion. Before speaking more about TMCP, uh, let's talk a bit about MCP in general. And this is actually a personal curiosity because I had to run an MCP workshop recently, and I was struggling to find how should I say, a coherent definition of what MCP is, because there were both technical and non-technical people involved into that discussion. How would you define MCP, the model context
Something that,
protocol?
like an example that I, because I was also running a workshop
Hmm.
on MCP servers, and something that I like tend to explain for non-technical people is, let's imagine like the problem with LLMs is that obviously like they have a training like period, and after that period ends, they're basically frozen in time. Like you cannot touch them anymore. Like so, if the period ends and the day after, like Queen Elizabeth dies, like the LLM will know nothing about that, and you can't really change that unless with your input. Like so, you can tell the LLM, hey, have this new information, have this new context about the word, and for the length of that conversation, it will work. Now, what I generally say is that let's imagine that I don't know, I want to ask the LLM, is it safe to go picnic in my city? Now, obviously, since the weather is something that it's very immediate, like the LLM will have no idea of what like the weather is like today, so it cannot suggest you. So obviously, you could tell the LLM, hey, today is sunny, 25 degrees. Is it safe to go? But that's kind of defying the purpose. And like the idea is that wouldn't it be cool if there was someone, something that it's always listening to your chat, and whenever the LLM asks what's the weather like today, it answers with the correct answer. And that is basically what an MCP server is. Like it's something that you can define and you can add to your LLM, and it's a program that is constantly running in the background. And whenever the LLM asks, give me some new context that I need, it can give the context, doing it in a programmatic way. So like I can call an API to get the weather and then give you back the so.
Exactly, exactly. I saw this really good picture in one presentation that explains that imagine that basically an LLM is like a brain.
Mhm.
And a brain, it's a very interesting thing, has memories, has capabilities to make decisions and so on, but it's just an isolated brain without no actual body.
Mhm.
It doesn't have anything to interact with and somehow tools in general, because 80% of the MCP, maybe more or less, but a big part of MCP is the capability to expose
Yeah.
tools to that LLM, to that brain. So it's like giving hands, legs, a full body, a full functional body to that brain that
Mhm.
again has some default knowledge already built in, also capabilities to make decisions, plans.
Yeah.
So this is somehow,
Yeah.
yeah, very interesting. So continuing the MCP thread, what led you to build TMCP? And by the way, what is the T come from?
It's like so the T is TypeScript basically. So it's
TypeScript. Okay.
TypeScript MCP.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And so the so I'm a Svelte maintainer. So
Hmm.
whenever I see something new to build, like for example, I did the same with the BlueSky feed or stuff like that. Like whenever I see something new to build, the first idea that I have is, okay, I want to build it with SvelteKit. I want to see if it's possible to build it with SvelteKit. For two reasons. Obviously, because like I'm very familiar with how SvelteKit works, and
Hmm.
so like, I love to use technologies that I am familiar with, but also to kind of like bench test the framework. Like I want the framework to be able to do whatever is possible,
Yeah.
right? And so I started looking when I was exploring what MCP even was. I started looking into, okay, how do I build one? How do I test one and stuff like that? And obviously, I stumbled across the official SDK, which is from the Anthropic guys. So it's at Model Context Protocol /SDK. And I started reading the README, and I started trying out stuff and stuff like that. And now the problem is, like most meta framework nowadays, they use like standard request and response, like web request and web response, which is the same thing that you get from fetch. And so when you send a fetch request and when you get back something from fetch request, you get back a web request. Like you send a web request and you get back a web response. And most modern framework like Next.js, Solid Start, even like runtimes like Cloudflare Workers, Ban, Dino, all of these, they all use request and response. Like the pattern is always the same. Like you get a request as input and you return a response as output. And the first example in the official MCP, it's using Express, which was already kind of like demotivating a bit because like we were kind of moving away from Express. I mean, not shade on Express because obviously it's a great library and stuff like that, but it is using node request and node response, which is like they act completely different. Like so, like you can't return a response. Like you get in a response and you need to write to the response. So that makes it very difficult to work with meta frameworks. And like it's even more like there are ways around. For example, Vercel created MCP Handler, which is a library that basically what they do is that under the hood they create a fake node response. So they pass that response to the library, like to the official SDK library. The SDK writes to that response, and then they collect all the information, and then they create a new response that you can return from Vercel, like from Next.js. And you can technically use that like even in SvelteKit, it's fine. But it's still a bit iffy.
Yeah.
Still a bit more work to do, and like it's not the best thing in the world. And then I said, okay, screw that. I will try to use it like this anyway. So I started exploring this, and then I wanted to use Valibot as my validation library. And I was sure that like the official SDK was using standard schema. I don't know if you know about standard schema, but basically like, it's a spec that like the creator of Valibot, Zod, and Archetype came together to create so that a library can use whatever validation library, so that the user of your library can use whatever they want.
Take it.
You will still be able to infer the types and to validate at runtime. So I was sure that the official SDK was using something like this. And I tried to use Valibot, and it did not work. And so I installed Zod, and it still did not work. And I said, what the heck? So I went into looking into the dependency of the official SDK, and they have a hard dependency on Zod v3, and I was installing Zod v4. So, but this also prompted me to take a look at the dependency, and I saw that basically, since they have one big package that exports the client, the server, the transport, and stuff like that, effectively, like even if you build an stdio transport with the official SDK, you will have Express as a dependency. You will have Course as a dependency. You will have AJV as a dependency. Like those are all very big, chunky libraries that you will ship with your MCP server.
And everything becomes very bloated and very
bloated package. And obviously, like, I mean, no shame in that. Like, I don't want to shame on other libraries because I'm very supportive of open source.
Totally agree. Yeah.
I just thought, and generally, whenever I find some problem in a library that I want to use, I open a PR to that library to fix that problem that I have. So it's not something that I'm not the type of guy that, okay, this library doesn't do this, I will create my own. Like generally, I try to contribute back, but there were so many little things, like even like on the API levels. For example, they have this, like when you want to create a dynamic resource, you have to use this new resource template class, which is not typed, like, so you cannot get type inference about which parameters you have. And then inside the resource template, you have the complete function for the completions part of the MCP. But then if you want to do the same thing with the prompt needs to import a completable function that gets the single field Zod schema, and then you have the function. So like their API, I think, I mean, again, no shade, but I think they are using AI a lot to develop the official SDK, and it really shows, because like those are dependencies that like the AI really loves, because they are very established dependency. Like Express is like a staple. Like there is a ton of Express out in the world.
Yeah.
And same thing for Zod, obviously. And it also shows because like it shows that like probably like whatever AI they are using, which I assume is Claude, obviously like if you launch a task, we need to build a resource template. It is self-contained. So like it only knows about, okay, I have this task to do, and it will do the task. And then you launch a different task and say, we need to build completable for the prompt. It is kind of detached from what you built before. And so like the API cannot be that consistent. So those are all things that like struck me in the wrong way. And it was a big structural change. So I could not just contribute back to their open source. And so I say, let me start exploring how to do it without a library.
Because basically, in the end, being a protocol, because this is in the end MCP, it's a protocol to expose context to an LLM, a standard protocol.
At the end of the day, it's a protocol that is built on JSON-RPC.
Exactly.
So effectively, what you need is just a JSON-RPC server.
Exactly.
And a JSON-RPC server is actually pretty easy to build yourself.
And of course, respecting the definitions of the protocol. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But like it's just basically the protocol is telling you which JSON-RPC server you need to build to adhere to the protocol.
Exactly.
And so what I did is, okay, let me see, like I installed that JSON-RPC server library, which is very minimal and very...
so basically you started from scratch, from the bare minimum, and after that really...
It was just an experiment. Like I just wanted to see, like, because again, I said, like, why do I even need all of this machinery to work when I can just like respond with a JSON-RPC server? And so I started from scratch with a JSON-RPC server, and I started adding manually the tools and manually stuff. And I mean, I got it working, and like it was 100 lines, and I had a functional MCP server. And obviously, like from that point on, I said, okay, at that point, it's pretty easy to just, I don't know, store the tools inside a set and search through them instead of manually writing all the tools. And then it's pretty easy to add a function that you can call with a name, and then I store that inside the set, and so like from there I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll just do it.
Nice. So nice. By the way, I really did get a chance to play a bit with it, and so far I like it. I mean, it's so fast and so lightweight. I'm actually, by the way, sharing the page of the GitHub repo, so I encourage everyone to take a look. Besides being so lightweight, I felt it quite very easy to pick up and do the first example, especially because this is, and again, I totally agree with what you say. I'm not trying to criticize, but mostly to improve open source tools. But I felt also the documentation of the default MCP kit. It can be better, let's say. It can be more straightforward.
Like it is absolutely like they have to maintain 8 SDK, right? Like they're all their SDK, like in TypeScript, Rust, Python, Go. Like obviously, it is like it is a difficult job, even if you are paid to do so. Because I suppose that Claude actually. Like Anthropic is probably paying someone to maintain that.
Anthropic pays Claude to maintain.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And so like it's absolutely like I get it. Like it's not that like.
Correct.
But yeah, like those were basically like my main design, like my main goals with TMCP was that I want the library to be very composable. Like I don't want you to get any extra dependency that you don't need. So if you are using Valibot, you will get only the dependency for the Valibot, the Valibot thing. If you are using Zod, you will only get the dependency from Zod. If you are not using the HTTP transport, you are not getting any of the dependency that you will need to check for the thing. And same thing, like if you are only building transport HTTP transport, I don't want you to get the dependency that I need
all the other transport types and so on. Very interesting. Nice.
That was one of the design goals. The other design was that I wanted the API to be very consistent, because that's something that when I start learning a library,
yes, I feel your pain.
I expect some consistency in the API. So if I'm registering a tool, I'm setting the schema that are like the input parameters for that thing, and the field is called schema. And if I move to the prompt, I want that field to be called schema. I don't want that field to be called arg schema. Arg schema is probably more explanatory, so like it is better in some sense, but I want that field to be the same name as the other one, because
I felt a bit the same problem with LangChain, and I think this is a common problem when you are trying to implement multiple things in different languages. At one point, maybe because of the underlying mechanism of the language, you make a decision that is not able to fully implement in the other language. And you end up with this mix, but after that, maybe later you decide, I don't know, to support something else, and you add two ways of doing the same thing, and from there it's very easy to lose control.
It might be, it might be.
Exactly. I'm curious, how do you split your time between your day-to-day, or let me rephrase to make it more realistic. How do you find time after your day-to-day job to?
Honestly, I have no idea, because I have
a lot of coffee.
I have so many side projects, and obviously, like one of my it's actually one of my main project is my family. So like,
you have kids?
Yeah, I have one kid. I have
so do I.
One beautiful wife, and obviously I want to spend time.
So then, you know the story. You know the.
Absolutely. So I don't honestly like. I tend to like literally find scrap of times. Like maybe my wife is like putting my kids to bed, and in the meantime I have 1 hour to work on something.
I see.
And maybe we are preparing lunch, and like I stay like 15 minutes over like after work during my lunchtime to do some small stuff and stuff like that. I have to say, like I was pretty skeptical about AI initially.
Everyone else.
I'm coming around in the sense that I don't think it's a silver bullet. Like I don't think, at least for the moment, I don't think we are at the moment where you can like fully replace a human with AI. But the nice thing is that like the thing that made me click AI is the fact that you can like put a task and leave it, and then you can go do other stuff, and then when you come back you have much less to do. Like you have the last 30% to do, which is still a lot.
Wow.
Like you still.
Can you give an example of this? I mean, what do you use, or what type of task, or something if you remember? It's okay if you don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like as you said, what type of task, I think it's very telling about the thing. Like you need to also be like to also develop an eye about what the AI can do and what it can't.
Okay.
Like I would never let AI design my API, because I think AI in general sucks at the API designs. But for example, for menial task, I can say, okay, I do this like small fix, and then I say, okay, I git add everything, and I say, please implement the test and the documentation for the things that I have already added to the Git stash. And the AI will go there, look at what it's in the Git stash, and start implementing test and the thing. And then when I come back, I just need to verify that like those things are actually correct. So
Oh,
it still takes time because
okay.
obviously if I'm writing some test, I don't want to like. It was very funny. Like I'm receiving also some PRs that like I'm reviewing PRs
Let-
from people that use AI, and you can tell because like in one recent PR there were two tests that were literally testing nothing. Like it was like 500 line files that was not importing any of the functions. It
Oh,
was
wow.
literally like every test was like, okay, I will write to a file and then confirm that what I write to a file is what I write to a file. Like every test was some.
Really? 500 lines of only of
Yes,
this.
it
Wow.
was all of this, like all this. And I said, like, is this testing anything? In the end, we ended up like removing that file. But
Wow.
so this is to say that like you really need to like check. So it's not like you will be able to just like leave the AI and let it merge whatever it wants.
Yes.
So I make them do the work, and then like the nice thing is that if everything goes correctly, I can just scroll over the file. Okay, everything looks correct. I can just commit, and this saves me time because I don't have to literally write that. Like the AI can write that for me, which is much faster to do it. Or I mean, I can do other stuff while the AI
Correct.
do it. And then my job is to do like the last 30% of the work and actually check if everything is correct, or maybe change some stuff here and there, fix it.
Correct. 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 And for this, in general, you use something like Cursor or like an integrated development with directly.
What I've been using Cloud Code a lot.
Okay.
Right now, I'm trying to test. So I am a cloud. I love Anthropic.
Yeah.
As,
Yeah. Yeah. So do I. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I like it more. Now, I've heard a lot of like, oh, Codex is better, GPT-5 is better, and stuff like that. And so I'm now also testing Codex a bit,
Mhm.
just because, like, I mean, I think it's our job, especially as a consultant. So
To be
it's our
curious.
job to know what the best tool to use.
Correct.
Obviously, I'm not like I'm not how can I say like
Ne-
I'm not closed-minded.
yeah.
Like
Narrow-minded.
I,
Narrow. Yeah.
I used Cloud Code a lot, and I've been happy with it. But if Codex CLI comes out, like it's not a person yet,
Correct.
so it will not get offended
Correct.
if I switch to Codex. And so I'm trying to test Codex, which, by the way, I don't know because like it's very slow. So I don't know.
On the other side, I feel that there are so many tools pumped out so fast that sometimes you may end up, I think, at one point you have to really master one tool instead of knowing 10% of 10 tools.
That's true.
It's the same with a programming language. Instead of knowing the basics in maybe you should really know
Yeah.
JavaScript.
And by the way, obviously, since I am building TMCP, which is a library to build MCP servers,
Yes.
I'm also like, I think I have basically every possible MCP client installed on my computer because I want to test that everything works everywhere. Because obviously, this was one of the
Oh,
challenges
wow.
to build TMCP.
Okay.
This was one of the challenges because, like, I need to catch up with the official SDK.
Yeah.
Now, I think right now it's basically done. Like I have everything set up. And I actually think I have something more than the official SDK.
Yeah.
Like I think, for example, the official SDK didn't support, I think at this moment doesn't support a resource subscription yet.
Yeah, I
It's,
think Fast MCP had it, but no, the official one, no, I don't think it
yeah.
has. Yeah.
So TMCP actually has it.
Oh,
But yeah, the point is, the thing that I need to make sure is that like it's actually adhering to the protocol. So like I want to test it with as much client as possible because obviously like each client will implement stuff in a slightly different way,
correct, correct.
and especially for stuff more annoying. For example, authentication is something
Yeah.
that each client implementing its own way,
Yeah, it's a,
very
it's
difficult to get right, and
it's
so
an
like,
issue. Authentication in MCP is
something that, for example, I really don't like is the fact that a lot of clients basically just focused on tool. like I would love to use open code as my driver because I think I really like the UI. I really like all the niceties that they have. The fact that I can just share a chart that I have in my terminal is very, very cool. But it doesn't support prompts, for example, or resources. Because they're using the AI SDK under the hood, and the AI SDK doesn't support prompt, and like it only supports tools, which is what basically everybody is focusing on. Like everybody is focusing on, I will implement tools, and nobody's thinking about all the rest of the details.
Yeah.
And I think the rest of the details actually makes for a very good MCP experience.
Do you know the MCP Summit?
Yes, I actually talked 2 days ago.
Really?
Yes, 2 days ago, I did a talk presenting TMCP there.
Wow! I have to check out the talk.
I actually submitted a talk for the MCP Summit, like in London, but I was rejected. But I speak that the context, which is their podcast for.
Super nice. Yeah, great stuff. I will check it out. It was a talk on the MCP Summit. I don't remember the name, but I will link it, about seeing also the importance of because yes, in theory you could do everything with, or many of the things you can do them. You can substitute resources and prompts with tools, but
yes,
it's kind of, we will do anything with a post in HTTP. There's a reason why we have get. There is a reason why we have put, why we have delete, and so on. So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, but also I think like even the experience is different. Like the fact that you can just add a resource to your system,
exactly,
and you don't have to rely to the LLM to actually do it. That's a win. And because like, and the same thing for prompts. Like the fact that you can add something literally to your input box, it's different from adding a resource, and it's different from the LLM calling a tool.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Speaking with about AI and this whole so fast moving world, what excites you at this moment? So let's see that let's say that all the new stuff that's appearing is like a stock. Where would you put your learning money?
Yeah, that's like, so I think definitely like the MCP word is definitely something that like I think they struck the right chord.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe because I'm still a pragmatic developer, but I think that what excites developer about MCP is the fact that you can have some control. Like I think one of the things that really scares developer about AI is that you lose all the control that we gain over the years. Like we started doing things in a very pragmatic way. Like the reason why we use like a programming language instead of like talking in English is that a programming language is very precise. Like you have rules and you can define what you really want with an incredible amount of precision. And you can just do that with natural language. And that's why I think AI is not super good without like some aid of
exactly.
Either you have to write a ginormous prompt to do a very simple thing because like you need to define every single detail, or you need to use something external. And I think MCP unlocks the ability to reintroduce some of this control into a system that is a bit more chaotic, because the moment the LLM goes from an LLM to your code, then you can do all the pragmatic things here that are difficult for the LLM to do, and you can do it in a language that is actually pretty precise, and then you just return the output, and you are basically mixing bot word.
Correct. This is one thing, and also because we spoke about Swix earlier, he had in one talk something like, don't try to do everything with AI. Yeah, in theory you can, but instead keep as much as deterministic coding as much as possible, because we are using it for so long. It works. It's more or less cheap if you exclude the human input. Yeah, the cost of building it, but it's reliable, cheap, works for the long run. Instead, use AI only for AI stuff for
Yeah.
national for processing language, for example, or all kinds of stuff that.
And I actually have an example of this because we recently launched the Svelte MCP server
Yes.
that I've built. I
Okay.
mean, me together with Stanislav and other.
Okay. Wow. Nice.
Right. And we used, in my opinion, a very novel technique, which I think is very good. Like it solved, like, I don't know if you ever developed in Svelte with AI,
Hmm.
but we had a problem because like there's so much Svelte 4 code outside in the world. And we recently released Svelte 5 like 1 year ago, which was a pretty big overall in terms of syntax. And this basically like fucked up with all the AIs because like AI doesn't know about the new syntax because there is a cutoff
Of
date.
course.
And so like they continue to write old syntax, or maybe they write new syntax but screw out little details about the new syntax. And so what we did was we built this MCP server that, I mean, provides documentation, and that's already something. I think everybody and their mother was doing something like that. Like everybody that has a developer product is building an MCP server to serve the documentation. But what we did was actually that something that I think is pretty smart, because we also introduced autofixer, which basically means that the LLM send us the code, we do static analysis on the code, and then we return. We don't fix the code because fixing the code is not something that we can do reliable with static analysis, because
Okay.
if there's some pattern that
Yes.
looks wrong, but we don't know if it's wrong,
Yeah.
we can't actually change your code. And so what we did is that we just return an array of issues and an array of suggestions in plain English to the LLM, so that the LLM can read those sentences and figure out if what they did is wrong.
And does that work? Because it
It
sounds very
works wonderfully.
really. Wow.
Yes, because and there's also like another small trick that I used. Like in the array, like I return the issue, I return the suggestions, and then I return require another tool called after fixing true.
Okay.
Unless, like, I always return it true unless there are no issues and no suggestions.
Okay.
And what this does is that basically prompts the LLM to continuously call the tool every time they change the code.
Okay.
And it works flawlessly because like they read the return value and then they use what they are useful for, like figuring out from context if that change is actually correct. And if it's actually correct, they do the change, and
Wow.
that's it.
Wow. So I actually made a note to test out the MCP Svelte
Yes.
server. It really made me curious what you say. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen like, at this point what I ended up realizing is that the only thing that is stopping even very cheap LLM to achieve like a good Svelte code is that they just suck at JavaScript.
Yeah.
Like, but I've seen good result even with GPT OSS 20 billion. So like a very cheap, like something that can run on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Has no idea of Svelte 5. Like if you ask without the MCP, if you ask to write a Svelte 5 component, it will just like made up syntax.
Wow.
And like build something that is not.
Yes.
And after like, I don't know, 3 minutes of like back and forth with the MCP, is actually able to generate some pretty good Svelte 5 code. That's the nice thing.
Incredible.
Right? Not only because the interesting bit about this technique is that not only we can fix syntax error, but we can also fix semantic errors. For example, it's very bad in general to reassign state inside an effect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not only Svelte, like everybody.
Yeah, in general. Yeah.
That is very bad. And if we see that you are, like, the AI is trying to generate an effect with assigning state inside, we actually tell the LLM, hey, check if you can remove this. And this means that like we are also guiding the LLM towards writing good Svelte 5 code and not just Svelte 5.
Wow. And by the way, for some reason, I'm a bit involved with the Ruby on Rails world, and even I never wrote a Ruby, but I listened to the Code with JSON podcast. It's quite good, and but it focuses on the Ruby world. And very often I am hearing that, yeah, the LLMs are not yet very good at writing Ruby code because they don't have enough examples. But actually, now I realize that this is a problem that can be fixed in that
Yes,
world also by
yes.
a similar solution. Incredible.
I think that this technique should become the default for every programming language, like every kind of niche,
Yes,
like part of the language, because
yes,
it's very easy with static analysis to see what you are getting wrong.
yes.
You can just do that.
Wow. Very interesting. Great, great stuff. Um, how do you learn? Who do you follow? What's your learning
So I
method?
have to admit that I am kind of like I obsess over stuff.
Mm,
So like in my free time, I often fell asleep looking at conference talks, and so like I use like I pretty much whenever I see some interesting title, I store them, and whenever I'm doing stuff like I'm driving around, I have a conference talk like
yeah.
or I mean a YouTube video in the background, and I listen to it, or I don't know, when I am relaxing after lunch, I'll just be on here and I'm like reading blog articles and stuff like that. So I understand that this is probably not really how can I say?
Yeah, general applicable strategy.
Yeah, exactly. It's not only general, but maybe it's not even good for me, but it's not something that I can actually do. So that's something that I do a lot. But also, I mean, it might feel like say it again and say it again. But I just build stuff. Like
Yes.
I can't stop myself. Like whenever I see some new stuff, I need to try to build something with it. And while doing so, you pretty much learn what you need to learn because
Yes.
I've learned like 90% of what I know, I learned during work. Like in my career, when I started working, if I look back at the me that started working like 8, 9 years ago, I knew nothing about what I know today. Like most of my knowledge, I learned it by
By
doing it.
doing it.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, I was actually speaking recently with a friend who told me he got a new job, quite a senior guy, and in for the past 4 months, he was so fed up in meetings and internal politics and stuff like that, that he told me that in general writes, opens up ID once per 2 weeks or something like that. And I said, get out of there. Because if you don't code, if you don't play football, never be a better football player. So I think the way we select our jobs is also very important in the how good we become in the
yeah,
long term.
that's also true. Like something that I always, I mean, I've been pretty fortunate up until this moment. Like I don't think I've ever been in a job that I wouldn't love to be in. Like maybe once I changed a lot of jobs, but
Yes.
I think I almost never like the only time that I had a job that I really didn't like, I just left. So I think that's very important. Like if you are at a job and you don't like your job, like you'll be stuck there 1/3 of your day
Oh yeah. Yeah.
every day.
More that you spend with your family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't hate your job.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you really can't.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very important. And I understand that obviously again, it's not always applicable because like if you have to bring some bread on the
Yeah.
table, like you need a job. But if I was in a job that I didn't love, I would immediately start searching something.
Is such a big cost because this is something that I thought, for example, in some projects I was like 1000% involved. But okay, warrant the pay wasn't as high, but and other projects, okay, very good pay, whatever. But I was really having problems to connect with, and I realized that the cost I'm actually paying. Okay, so it's one thing when you don't have, as you said, money for food. okay, then do whatever it takes. But after you went a bit above, so don't sacrifice status. Okay, I have this cool job at whatever, and it brings me a lot of money for the cost that you pay each minute of your day. That's horrible to be in a place where you're not connected, you're not having a decent amount of fun at least. Go. It's that's your life. And yeah, super. This is one question I ask all my guests, and I hope at one point to compose a big video with different people responding to this. But in your opinion, what makes a truly valuable software engineer? Someone who masters their craft and it's able to deliver value. It's able to help the ones around him to do great stuff.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and difficult question, because like I don't think there is one thing that makes great engineers. I think in general curiosity is something that I think in general curiosity is something that helps everybody. Like my son was about to born. When I was about to have my son, like the one thing that I really wanted to instill in him was curiosity, because I think once you have curiosity about stuff, you want to learn stuff. Like you want to learn how stuff works.
How would you instill in someone curiosity? I also have a small daughter, and I'm curious how to educate her.
I think that it kind of comes naturally the moment people see you excited about the stuff that.
Ah, wow.
So like I am very excited about learning new stuff. Like whenever I don't know, I see something and I want to learn how it works. Whenever I learn how it works, I cannot like stop saying to people, "Oh, look at this! Like I learned how to do this and stuff like that." And I think this is quite contagious. Like so.
This is even more a bigger topic to get a good job, a job that you care about, so that your kids can see your passion and they can emulate it later.
Yeah. But I think in general, like this is also true for like software engineer. Like if you are curious about stuff, like if you just stuck to what you need to do, you will not be a great engineer. Probably. You can be probably a good engineer. Like, okay, you tell me what I need to do. I just read the documentation. I implement what I need to implement, and that's it. But the moment you have curiosity and you start to looking under the curtain and you say, okay, let me see how this really works. Let me see how can I, like if I want to rebuild it from scratch, how can I do it?
Yes.
This kind of stuff is what really like drives you forward, in my opinion. Like for example, I learned how Svelte works under the hood because I was curious about how it works under the hood. But even if I don't use React anymore, I also learned how React works under the hood. I also learned how Vue works under the hood. I also like those kind of stuff always make me curious. Like they released the brand new Svelte compiler. I want to see what product, like what they what they emit, like how they are doing some certain thing. And this has a double effect. Like one is that you learn a lot of very small things that you can apply into your day-to-day job. Like because obviously someone might say like, why do I need to learn how to build a React compiler? I'm never going to build a React compiler at work. And that's true. But while learning how to build a React compiler, you learn a lot of small little things that you are going to use in your day-to-day job. So like it could be, I don't know, a random JavaScript API that you didn't know it existed, and then you can use that inside your day-to-day job or something else.
Who I think Charlie Munger was with this idea that knowledge compounds exactly like money. You add one brick, and after that adding becomes much more easier.
For example, it's super silly, but I follow, there is a bot on BlueSky that posts a random MDN page every day. And it's super silly because like sometimes you really get some non-useful page, but then sometimes you get some API that you didn't know you existed, and you go there and you learn about that API, and maybe like it's been like it happened to me sometimes that I went checking some new API and that sprouted an idea that like then lead to a complete revolution in something that I was doing. So that's like, and even when I was like, I remember like when I was in university, I built something similar for Java classes. Like I built a program in Java that uses reflection to get a random class in the JavaScript SDK and like showed it to me. And I learned so much stuff with this. Like, for example, I remember implementing JNI, which is Java Native Interface, where you can actually use a C module inside Java. And I learned through this because of this random, like I was clicking randomly to this list of stuff and I was looking and then I figured out like, what is this Java native interface? And then at a later point, I actually needed a native interface to do something because there was something that was not possible to do without C, and I actually implemented it and it worked. And it was very nice to have that knowledge.
So nice. Somehow, as a conclusion to this curiosity and see how things work under the hood, I encourage listeners one more time to take a look at the TMCP, because I realized that I mean, you can check the full source code, and being a project that it's somehow in its infancy, you can is not yet too complex. You can actually see and understand how it evolves, and you can I don't know, put the whole context into your mental RAM. At least for the moment, you'll not be able to do that with a very complex
Do you think something like, so I do think that when I am exploring an OSS library, I hate when it's filled with abstraction. I think, for example, I started looking into the React like code base, and the React code base, it's filled with abstraction. So like very often what happens is that you are following a thread and then you need to jump to a completely different folder to continue looping that thread. That's something that I try to avoid whenever I'm building something. I really don't like, obviously, like we are engineers, so like whenever we are reusing some stuff, like
it
we
feels
abstracted, so like we feel that way. But when I develop something, I try to make it as linear as possible, because I think it's also pretty nice to work with stuff that are very linear, if I can.
so excellent. Paolo, thank you very much. As a final question, I will link your website, ricciuti.me. But is there any place where would you send people to follow
Yeah,
you?
I would say BlueSky is mainly where I am at, and you can find me as paolo.ricciuti.me.
Okay.
Obviously, you can also follow me on GitHub, Paolo Ricciuti.
Wonderful, wonderful. We will connect also on BlueSky, because for me it's a bit lonely. I on BlueSky, so I'm really happy that people are getting more and more active over there. So wonderful. Thank you very much for your time. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.